Okay, so this is a video for chapter 14 of Advancing Vocabulary Skills. If you want to follow along in your book, it's on page 80. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and pause the video here and take a guess at the parts of speech for these ones, you can go ahead and do that. We have two words here with ATE, and they're extricate. Three of them: extricate, facilitate, and rejuvenate. So that should clue you into their parts of speech. Okay. All right, so our first one here is decorum. Decorum demands that you send a thank you note for all birthday gifts, even those you don't like or will never use. In her newspaper columns, Miss Manners gives advice on decorum in all kinds of situations. For example, she says that at a dinner party, you must be polite even if you find a bug crawling in your salad. So what decorum means is proper conduct. On page 81, the word decorum is defined as number 4, correctness in behavior and manners, standards or conventions of socially acceptable behavior. Decorum, if we look at the picture down there, it says decorum requires that the sailors salute the admiral. So decorum is really a formal word that talks about the appropriate behavior in a formal situation. We might say that you need to have some decorum in the classroom, meaning that there are certain behaviors that are not acceptable in a classroom in terms of proper behavior. So that's what decorum means, is the proper conduct for a specific situation. Okay, so moving on to the next one here, we have espouse. And espouse is a verb, and what it means is, let's read the sentences. Some politicians espouse whatever ideas they think will win them votes. People who espouse animal rights often find themselves in conflict with scientists who argue for the use of animals in medical experiments. So what espouse means is to speak for. On page 81, espouse is number 6. It means to support, argue for, or adopt an idea or cause. So espouse means to speak for some particular idea. So it doesn't mean to speak for another person, but it means to speak up for some specific idea. So espouse is, in terms of its formal usage, we can also say it's to believe in and support a political or religious idea. So, for example, if you were a Christian missionary, you might espouse ideas about Jesus being the Son of God, the need to turn the other cheek, or to treat your neighbor as you would want to treat yourself. But espouse means that you're speaking for some specific idea. All right, so our next one here is exhilaration. After the last exam of the year, Olivia and I were so filled with exhilaration that we skipped all the way to the car. A marching band gives most people a feeling of exhilaration. The lively music makes them feel excited. So exhilaration means happiness. And we can see there in that picture that the graduates have a feeling of exhilaration. On page 81, exhilaration is high spirits or cheerfulness. So exhilaration comes from the word exhilarate, or the adjective exhilarated. And so you can sort of see from the pictures on the people's faces that it doesn't mean, just you're okay, so happy, but exhilaration is like a huge feeling of excitement. Often it's associated with a sense of accomplishment. So like in the first one, they finished the last exam of the year, so they've been taking all of these exams and they have such a feeling of excitement when they're done. In the second one, a marching band is something that you may see at some college football games, where there's a bunch of instruments, and part of the reason that they do this is to get people excited about the game, to cheer for the game. So exhilaration is not just, happiness, but an extreme level of happiness. Looking up here a definition, and here it says feeling extremely happy and excited is the meaning of exhilaration. All right, so moving on to exorbitant. So exorbitant is an adjective. Even if I were rich, I wouldn't pay $300 for those shoes. That's an exorbitant price. The armed forces often spend exorbitant amounts on minor items, including a $100 ashtray and a toilet seat that cost thousands of dollars. So exorbitant means extremely high. So on page 81, exorbitant means, let's see where it is, number 10. Excessive, especially in amount, cost, or price, beyond what's reasonable or appropriate. So we see that exorbitant is, in both of these examples, is used for price, meaning that things cost a lot more than they should. So one of the examples of this, like I was actually, over the weekend, I was just at a football game in Baltimore at the Ravens Stadium, and to get a bottle of Coke, it was $5. So if you were to get one of those bottles from the machines here, it's just $1.50. So those prices are exorbitant. They're way over what one should be expected to pay. Okay, so our next one is extricate. Extricate, it ends in the 8, and here's a verb. So the fly struggled and struggled, but was unable to extricate itself from the spider's web. The couple ran up so many debts that they finally needed a counselor to help them extricate themselves from their financial mess. So on page 81, extricate is number 2, and it means to free from a tangled situation or difficulty. It means to untangle. So untangle, the word tangle is often used for hair, but it would also be used for, like, your headphone cords or the cables to your TV or something. But if something gets tangled, it means that it gets all put up together in knots, and it's difficult to undo, to make things normal as well. Again, so whenever we're talking about extricating someone from a situation, what we're saying is that you're in a really difficult situation that is not easy to get out of. So you try to extricate yourself, means that you're trying to get yourself out of that situation. In the first example here, we have the fly in the spider's web. So the webs are designed that the harder you struggle, the harder it is to get out. In the second case, we have the example of debt. Once you start building up debts, the interest will rise. And so it means that you owe more and more money. So maybe you borrow more money, and that puts you into even more debt. So to get out of that situation would be really difficult. You can also use it, sometimes in social situations. Sometimes it's hard to extricate yourself from specific friendships. So maybe you become friends with somebody and you don't really like them, but they really like you, and so you do spend some time with them, but you don't enjoy it. But because you spend some time with them, they want to spend more time with you, and so you do that just to be polite. But the more time you end up spending with this, the more difficult it is for you to extricate, to remove yourself from that friendship. All right, so our next one here is facilitate, and this one's also a verb ending with the 8 sound. So automatic doors in supermarkets facilitate the entry and exit of customers with bags or shopping carts. For those with poor eyesight, large print facilitates reading, and facilitate means to make possible. Now, for those of you guys who are Spanish speakers, this one should be easy for you. The beginning of this word is fácil, which means easy in Spanish. So this is a word that comes from a Latin root. But facilitate means to make something easier. So here it says make possible, but really it means that it's making something easier to do. So, for example, in the first one, the automatic doors make it easier to come in and out of a place, even if you're carrying things. So, even if there weren't automatic doors, you could still open the door. It'd just be more difficult. In the second one, large print facilitates reading for people who have bad eyesight. They can still read without the large print, but the large print makes it easier. On page 81, it's number 8. To make easier to do or get is to facilitate. So, orthodox, and this is an adjective. When Father Mackenzie brought drums and electric guitars into the church, he shocked the more orthodox members of his congregation. The orthodox footwear for a sprint or distance race is some kind of running shoes, but a champion Ethiopian runner competed in the Olympics barefoot. So in this case, orthodox means traditional. Orthodox is also oftentimes associated with like conservative. And so those of you guys who are in 32, you may have learned the word conservative, meaning resistant to change or favoring traditions. And orthodox is not so much about a resistance to change as much as it's talking about the traditional way that something is done. Orthodox is also often used with religions. So if we say, for example, in the book we're reading, we see that the Jews from Ruth's family are Orthodox Jews, which means that they're more traditional Jews. So the opposite of Orthodox are, I guess opposite in some ways, are Reformed Jews. And these are people who've sort of changed their interpretation of the religion to go away from the more traditional form of the religion. On page 81, Orthodox says, is number 9. Following established traditional rules or beliefs, especially in religion, following what's customary or commonly accepted is the meaning of that. All right, so our next one here is rejuvenate. And this one is, again, an 8 word, and so this is a verb. So the fountain of youth was a legendary spring whose waters could rejuvenate people. The grass had become brown and matted, but a warm spring rain rejuvenated it, perking it up and turning it green again. So what rejuvenate means is to give new life to. If we take a look at this word, the re part of it is again, and then in the middle you have this juve, which you may know the word juvenile. And for those of you who don't know the word juvenile, a juvenile means a child, right? Someone who's not mature yet. So when we're rejuvenating something, we're making something young again. So when we're saying to give new life to, we don't really mean a different life, but meaning to give that thing energy again as though it was younger. So on page 81, it's number 5, and it says to make someone feel or seem young again, to make something seem fresh or new again. Is what rejuvenate means. So in the first example, there's this legendary spring, which means this water that you could drink it and it makes you young. With grass, when you water your grass, you rejuvenate it, you make it fresh and green again. One of the things you guys may be feeling that you need right about now and towards the middle of the semester or towards the end is something to rejuvenate you, right? Because the wear and tear of all the studying and all the work makes us feel really weak, and so sometimes we need to do something to rejuvenate ourselves, something nice that will refresh us and give us energy to keep on going. So here's our next one, synchronize. And synchronize is a verb. The secret agents synchronized their watches so that they could cross the border at exactly the same minute. We need to synchronize the clocks in our house. The kitchen clock is 10 minutes slower than the alarm clock in the bedroom. And so what synchronize means in this case is to coordinate. On page 81, it's number 7. To cause to occur at exactly the same time. To cause clocks and watches to agree in time. So synchronize. If we look in that in if we look in the word, and in the middle of the word we have this word chron, which comes from chrono. Those of you guys may remember studying the words chronological time, which is another word that we use for time order. So when we're describing the events in which something happened, if we do chronological time, we'll talk about what happens first, and then after that, and then next, and so on. So this chrono in the middle of synchronize has to do with time as well. So the sync part means that you're matching up the times. So to synchronize means that you're working to get two or more things to happen or work at the same time, is the focus there. And next one is tenuous, and this is an adjective. It doesn't take much to destroy an already tenuous relationship. Something as slight as forgetting to telephone can cause an unstable relationship to collapse. Dell was opposed to the Equal Rights Amendment, but his position seemed tenuous. He couldn't support it with any facts, and his logic was weak. So in this case, tenuous means shaky. And when we say shaky, what we don't mean is like someone whose hands are shaking or something, or describing someone who is shaking, who's not stable. But tenuous, when we say shaky, we mean more that it's unsure, that it's not stable. On page 81 it says, having little substance or basis, weak, poorly supported. So in both of these cases we're saying about, in the first one we're talking about a tenuous relationship. So if you're friends with someone, but you're not like super good friends, you're just sort of kind of friends, even the smallest thing can break up the relationship. However, if your relationship is very strong and very stable, little things aren't going to break it up. In the second example, we're saying that someone's position seemed tenuous, and by this what we mean is that, sometimes you may have a situation where someone asks you, oh, do you like this, or do you think this or that is a good thing, and you don't really think through your answer. So if you give your answer, it might be tenuous because you don't have a lot of support, and that it could easily be broken down. One of the things, don't get confused with this word. In 32, there's the word tentative, and tentative means that it's not planned yet. It's not 100% for sure. Tenuous is different, because tentative means that you do have a plan, but it's not 100% sure. Tenuous means that there's something there, but there's no specific plan, but it's just that the relationship itself or the situation itself is not super clear. Okay, so let's go on and take a look at the sentence check here on page 82. So number one, ignoring all standards of cafeteria blank, students sat on tables and threw French fries at each other. So this is standards of cafeteria blank. How do you behave in a cafeteria? Some premature babies are so tiny and weak that their hold on life is very blank. So a premature baby is, a child who's born before 9 months, or well before 9 months. So they're so tiny and weak that their hold on life, how would you describe their ability to keep on living? So the first one here is decorum, right? It talks about the standards of acceptable behavior in a cafeteria. You're not supposed to throw French fries, sit on the tables. And then the second one, it's tenuous. Their hold on life is very shaky. All right, so the ads for the Anti-Wrinkle Cream claim that it will blank aging skin. So anti-wrinkle, it's getting rid of the wrinkles. So what's it going to do to your aging skin? How will it make it look? Will it make it older or younger? The new restaurant went out of business because of its blank prices. So what kind of prices would cause a restaurant to go out of business? Are these going to be really, really low prices, or really high prices, or just medium prices? The children's blank at the amusement park was contagious. Their parents soon felt excited too. So how do children act when they're at an amusement park? So this is a place like Six Flags or Disneyland or King's Dominion or something like that. What's the feeling that they have then? So our first one is rejuvenate. It's going to make the young skin look, the old skin look young again. And the second one, exorbitant prices. If the things were way too expensive, the business is not going to last. And then the last one, we have exhilaration. These children are super, super excited to be at the amusement park. If you're giving a dinner party, preparing some food platters ahead of time will blank your work when the guests arrive. So if you prepare ahead of time, what's that going to do for you later? Will it make it easier to do the work when your guest arrives, or is it going to make it harder? At age 2, Carlos got his head stuck between the bars of an iron railing. His parents had to call the fire department to come and blank him. So his head is between these bars. It's stuck in the bars, and it's so difficult to get his head out that his parents had to call the fire department. So what word means to get someone out of something difficult? So our first one is facilitate. It's going to make it easier if you prepare ahead of time. And the second one is extricate, meaning that this was a difficult thing to get the kid's head out of the bar. During the 1960s and 70s, there were bitter clashes between those who blanked the United States involvement in Vietnam and those who were opposed to it. So the argument was between people who were against the war in Vietnam and those who were in support of the war. New members of the water ballet club had trouble coordinating with their swimming, but with practice the group is able to blank its movements. So the water ballet club, so this is a dancing club, at first they're not able to coordinate to do things together, but when they practice they're able to do things together. So the blank treatment in this kind of case, the doctor said, is surgery followed by chemotherapy. But some specialists are exploring the possibility of using surgery alone. So this is saying the traditional, the normal, the accepted treatment is the surgery and chemotherapy, but there's some other treatments as well. So the first one is espouse, the people who are supporting, who are arguing for the war in Vietnam. Second one is synchronize, so they are able to coordinate their movements. And the last one is orthodox. So the sort of the traditional, the accepted treatment is this. Okay, so go ahead and finish off the online activities and do your answers to your questions, and we'll go over those in class. Take care. See you in class. Bye.